In this video, we'll be exploring the best things to do in Salzburg, Austria, saving some of the coolest, most unique finds for the end, with a free map of everything you need at the end as well. Now, in case you're new here, hi, I'm Christina from happytowander.com. And this channel is all about practical travel advice from someone who's been there, done that. So be sure to like and subscribe if that sounds like your kind of thing. First, we'll start with a very obvious activity just to get it out of the way, and that's to chase all the Sound of Music locations. After all, Salzburg is a city best known by North American tourists anyway for its starring role in The Sound of Music, a musical so iconic you're probably humming one of its songs right now. And yes, there are a number of famous locations you'll recognize just by walking around the city center, most of which we'll be covering later in this video. But just know that the most die-hard of fans can hop on the iconic Sound of Music Salzburg tour, just to get a full overview of locations, including some of the dramatic ones that are outside of the city center, like Schloss Leopoldskron, whose lakeside terrace is seen as Villa von Trapp, and of course those famous hills. There's plenty of filming locations you can admire in the city itself though, including our next must-do, which is a frolic around the Mirabell Palace and Gardens, as seen in Do Re Mi. Constructed as a token of love in the 17th century by Prince Archbishop Wolf Dietrich, today the palace and its stunning gardens stand for a different kind of love entirely, a love of selfies. I personally adore it here in spite of the crowds, and advise it to be your first stop in Salzburg. That way you can immediately immerse yourself in the city's Baroque beauty. You can even book a concert in the palace to watch Mozart's masterpieces live. From here, you're just a short walk away from a very scenic bridge over the river to what I consider the quintessential Salzburg must-do, which is a wander through Salzburg Old Town. Sure, this might be the busiest, most touristic part of the city, but for good reason. A quick stroll here and you'll soon discover why this part of Salzburg has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1996. While, to be honest, the more modern parts of the city can be fairly underwhelming, stepping into the Old Town is like stepping into another world, with its beautiful Baroque architecture, countless churches, and dramatic backdrop, filled with mountains and an imposing medieval fortress looming above. This part of town is best explored and discovered through wistful wandering, especially early in the morning before the day trip crowds arrive, at which point it can become a bit of a chaotic mess. We'll expand more on main highlights later in the video, but the standard route featuring spots you absolutely cannot miss include the main shopping street of Getreidegasse, lined with a number of shops and interesting sights, including the beautiful wrought iron signs that the Old Town is known for, as well as, of course, the birth home of Mozart. Yes, this is the very apartment where the Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born, and trust me, it's impossible to miss thanks to its bright yellow color and consistent mass of visitors out front at all hours of the day. Inside, visitors can explore the different rooms where Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart grew up and started learning music. While here, you can see many of Mozart's personal belongings, including his childhood violin and lots of paintings of his family. But to be honest, unless you're a huge fan of music and Mozart, I don't think this museum is a must-visit if you're short on time. The rooms are quite small and often super crowded with group tours, but it's worth checking out at least from the outside. From here, you can turn into the equally beautiful Zygmunt Hafnergasse, which is one of the city's oldest streets and home to a modern art museum at the Rupertinum. Or you can have a little fun and just poke around the many courtyards and passageways scattered around this part of town. This is a distinctive feature of Salzburg's Old Town, and you never know what you'll find. After a bit of exploring, you can proceed to some other popular squares, including Residenzplatz, which is home to a gorgeous fountain, as seen in The Sound of Music, Mozartplatz, a square named for the city's most famous hometown hero, though today it's mainly home to the fairly small Salzburg Christmas Museum, which is just okay and fairly small, so probably not worth seeing unless you're super into the topic, and preferably if you have a sightseeing card like the Salzburg card that includes it already. And Kapitellplatz, where you may spot a giant game of chess and admire the Sphäre, a big golden ball that is one of Salzburg's most famous pieces of modern art, with a man standing on top whose story is, you'll never guess, that he doesn't have a story. Of course, that's not the only unique piece of modern art to admire in the Old Town. My personal favorites are the giant pickles in Furtwänglerpark. The true centerpiece of the Old Town, though, is probably the stunning Domplatz, home to the Salzburg Cathedral, or Salzburger Dom. But this is a big enough landmark to merit its own section, so let's move on to our next must-do in Salzburg, which is to visit the beautiful Salzburger Dom, and Salzburg's many other churches. Famed for its large dome and twin towers, this cathedral is known as one of the most stunning examples of early Baroque architecture north of the Alps, with a number of cool features like 7 organs, including one with 4,000 pipes, and one that even Mozart used to play on. One of the most unique experiences you can enjoy here is the noontime organ concert, which does cost a bit extra but is worth every penny for the magical experience of hearing live organ music in such a beautiful venue. Just hear it for yourself. Of course, the Salzburger Dom, though the most popular, is only one of 22 churches in the Salzburg Old Town. So be sure to indulge your curiosity and peek into some others if you get the chance. Some I'd recommend include the St. Peter's Monastery and Cemetery, which is truly one of the most beautiful and peaceful parts of the city, just in the shadow of the fortress, and the Nonnberg Abbey, said to be one of the oldest in the German-speaking world, and also home to Maria's Abbey from The Sound of Music. While you're in this area, another must-do I can recommend for history lovers is to visit the Domquartier. This complex combines the Salzburg Residence, Cathedral, and St. Peter's Abbey to create a unique and surprisingly extensive attraction with everything from grand rooms and sweeping views to museums and galleries. If you're looking for the best overall attraction in Salzburg in terms of history, I'd say this one is great value for money, especially because it's included in the Salzburg card. Highlights include the festive rooms of the Residence, home to the city's Prince Archbishops for centuries, the Residence Gallery, with its changing exhibitions of paintings, the Cathedral Organ Gallery, which gives you a unique experience and view over the cathedral, as well as a beautiful terrace up top, plus plenty of relics to admire in the Cathedral Museum and St. Peter Museum. This one does take some time, but is completely worth it. Also worth it is to gawk at the imposing Hohensalzburg Fortress, which looms 500 meters above the city and flaunts one of the best views in town, which you can work for by walking up, or you can do it the easy way, which is catching a funicular that whizzes you all the way up. Construction on this bad boy began in 1077, and today it's recognized as one of the largest medieval castles in Europe. Originally constructed to protect the archbishops and their wealth, over the centuries it has been transformed into a formidable fortress complex with towers, bastions, and walls, ideal for military functions, princely residences, and even a prison. Today, visitors can explore different parts of the castle to learn more about its history and stop by some of its museums, including the Fortress Museum, home to all sorts of cool medieval relics, and the Marionette Museum. Yes, that's right, a museum dedicated to puppets, specifically puppet theater, something Salzburg has been known for over 100 years. And if you're especially keen on puppets, do know you can also attend a full-on puppet performance while in Salzburg. The Salzburger Marionettentheater has been performing for audiences since 1913, and would be a unique addition to any itinerary so long as puppets don't terrify you like they terrify me. Now, all that said, the fortress isn't the only place to get a good view in the city. In fact, one of my favorite things to do is seek out Salzburg's best views. There are a lot of great viewpoints where you can admire Salzburg and its abundance of beautiful spires, but some you can't miss for me include the one from the Kapuzinerberg, which is a nice spot for a little hike, and the Museum der Moderne Mönchberg. You can take an elevator up, or you can walk for a peaceful mini hike. The views here are unbeatable, and for fans of modern art, the museum here is fairly small, but is quite beautiful, so definitely worth checking out. There's also a restaurant/bar up here called M32 with a great outdoor terrace, ideal for a drink if the weather's right. Speaking of museums, another thing to do while here is a stop by one of Salzburg's many museums. To be completely honest, I don't think that museums should be your main priority in Salzburg. Having visited most of them myself now over the years, with the exception of the ones that I've mentioned above, I'd say most of them are only really worth visiting if you have a special interest in the topic. But if you do, some options include the Haus der Natur, which is dedicated to nature, technology, and science, spread across more than 7,000 square meters. Highlights here include an aquarium and various natural history displays, though it seemed to mainly be a popular field trip spot, so definitely more meant for a younger crowd. But not as young as the Toy Museum, which I don't know what I was expecting, but when I was asked to take off my shoes and the lockers looked like this, I realized this was definitely more a museum for kids to play around in, rather than a historical analysis of toys or whatever I thought I was getting into. I still went though. There are a few others, including an adventure museum dedicated to Bible stories, but again, I do think it's worth prioritizing Salzburg's other historic and cultural attractions instead if you're short on time. Now, speaking of cultural attractions, I do have to mention our next must-do, which is to enjoy Salzburg's local specialties. There's of course typical Austrian dishes you can try while here, like schnitzel, which is a thin slab of fried meat, and Tafelspitz, which is a boiled beef in broth. But there's also some must-tries that are more specific to the local region, like Kasnocken, small dumplings served with cheese and caramelized onion, the Bosna, which is a unique Salzburg sandwich consisting of 2 thin sausages served with raw onions, curry powder, and usually mustard, the Salzburger Knockel, which is a famous souffle-type dessert with mountain peak shapes said to represent the surrounding area, and the Salzburger Mozartkugel, which you'll find everywhere. These are balls of marzipan and pistachio wrapped in nougat and dipped in dark chocolate, with the original version coming from Fürst, who wrapped theirs in a silver foil with a blue Mozart portrait. Salzburg is even home to a restaurant that claims to be the world's oldest, the St. Peter Stiftskulinarium. For something simpler though, I'd recommend you visit the city's oldest bakery, the Stiftsbäckerei St. Peter, which dates back to the 12th century. Everything about this bakery is old-timey and wonderful. First, you're drawn into the courtyard through the sound of the spinning water wheel that supplies power to the mill. Then you're hit with the smell of freshly baked bread wafting from the wood fire ovens below. Down some stairs through a nondescript door, you enter a cavernous cellar with a vaulted ceiling where you can proceed to a small ordering area to the side where treats are sold and sales recorded via a good old-fashioned tally. The experience overall is super unique and tasty, so I can definitely recommend it. Of course, your visit to Salzburg isn't complete without a beer. Luckily, there's no shortage of places in the city to grab one, which is of course our next must-do. My personal recommendation is the Augustinerbräu Klosterbrauerei Mölln. This beer hall is the largest of its kind in Austria, where the beer they've been brewing here for over 400 years is freshly poured from wooden barrels and served in proper stoneware. If you're a beer lover, this place is paradise. With 8 rooms to choose from and a massive beer garden, the vibes here are unmatched. We sat in the Stockhammersaal, which is where many locals have their Stammtisch, a table with a recurring reservation, some of which have been going on for decades. The other rooms looked really promising too, so be sure to do a quick lap around before you commit. The Abbot Nikolaus Hall, for instance, used to be a grand hall in the Salzburg railway station, and was then restored and relocated here for all to enjoy. Here's how it works. You grab your stone mug, whether a full liter or just a half, you rinse it in the fountain, then pay at the cash desk where you tell them which beer option you want to go for. You're then given a voucher that you redeem at the pouring station, and boom, giant beer for you, fresh and ready. If you get nibbly, there's also a fun area known as a Schmenkelgang. That's like a mini food court where you can grab some bites in between brews. Important to note, this place is proudly cash only, so make sure you bring plenty of it. Another beer experience you can consider is the Stiegl Brewery Tour, where you'll find a family-run brewery that's been going strong for more than 530 years. Now, after enjoying all those tasty local specialties, another fun must-do is enjoy Salzburg from the riverside. I honestly feel like the Salzach River is one of the city's most underrated spots. Sure, it's no secret, but with how crammed the Old Town gets, one of the most pleasant things to do in Salzburg, in my opinion, is a leisurely stroll along the Salzach, admiring the 13 bridges that dot the river along the way. And you actually won't find too many tourists doing this, especially those who were part of day tours. So take advantage, whether by simply taking a stroll or hopping on a boat tour along the river. The simple and unassuming Mozart steg is one of the more popular bridges along the way, thanks to its brief cameo appearance in The Sound of Music. Now, if you're open to venturing a little farther out from the city center, then there are two main options to consider. First, you can venture out to Hellbrunn Palace. This gorgeous Baroque palace is home to grand halls and opulent interiors, as well as an expansive garden and picturesque park filled with trick fountains and hidden water features. And they have a pretty excellent Christmas market too, along with a fairly terrifying Krampus run if you plan your visit for the first week of December. You can easily get here from the city center by public bus, so definitely a great option. Another interesting spot can be found just outside of the Salzburg airport. In case you didn't know, Red Bull is Austrian, and the company headquarters are located just outside the city. And you can actually view their unique collection of historic airplanes, helicopters, Formula One cars, and just a general celebration of Broy gadgets at a free attraction known as Hangar 7. There's even a Michelin star restaurant here called Icarus, because of course there is. And if you have more time, be sure to also explore onwards in Austria and southern Germany. A popular option, for instance, is heading over to the gorgeous town of Hallstatt. Famed for its breathtaking natural beauty, Hallstatt is a picturesque village nestled in the Austrian Alps on the shores of Lake Hallstatt. It's packed with colorful buildings adorned with flower boxes, cobblestone streets, and quaint village squares that are sure to have you squealing in delight. Though beware, the secret is firmly out about this place, so it's almost always packed with people. I would highly recommend spending the night here though. Given its popularity as a day trip destination, staying late at night and exploring early in the morning is the best way to enjoy the town without all the massive crowds. Or for a more history-oriented day trip, Salzburg is also a great base for visiting the Kelstein House, better known as Hitler's infamous Eagle's Nest. The Eagle's Nest was built as a retreat and tea house for Adolf Hitler and members of the Nazi Party in the 1930s. Along with guided tours of the building, visitors here can also embark on leisurely walks or even challenging hikes through the alpine wilderness, enjoying fresh mountain air and stunning scenery along the way. There's also a restaurant and beer garden where you can relax while enjoying the panoramic views. You can learn more in my full Eagle's Nest guide, which I'll link in the description. But beyond these recommendations, do keep in mind that Salzburg is surrounded by stunning nature, from lakes close by like Wolfgangsee or Mondsee, great mountain hikes, and everything in between. So be sure to plan for some trips outside of the city as well if you can. Alright, I hope that was helpful. Be sure to like and subscribe for more travel videos just like this one, and you can check this link here for that map I promised you at the beginning. Safe travels, and I'll see you next time. Bye!